It's official, we're counting down. So today we're going to do a little bit of a chat into how we both got introduced to permaculture or found permaculture.
And spring, where it's the perfect combination of moisture levels and heat and sunlight, and like everything just goes berserk. And apart from that, most of the time the valley's pretty brown. It's been, I'm taking credit here. I've really done maybe 20% of the work.
Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we will be sharing how we and others apply the ethics and principles of permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, learning and fumbling our way to a greener life. You're guaranteed to witness a few successes, plenty of failures, laughs and swearing. We'd love your company along the way.
Hey Jo!
Hey Alysse, how are you?
How are you? Good. Both talking at the same time. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that I'm recording on Yagle country here in Broom's Head. Whereabouts are you?
So I'm recording from the Wonnarua country here in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales.
Lovely.
Fantastic.
What's been
how's
happening?
Your week been?
Good. Kind of, we've had lots of emotions the last week or so. We, as you may or may not know, people listening at home, we're looking for property. So we just missed out on our dream in inverted commas. Not inverted commas. The inverted commas? These things?
Air quotes.
Speech marks? Air quotes. Thank you.
Remedies.
Oh, what was that?
I don't know. You just had like...
If you are watching on YouTube right now, I just made it confetti. Can I do that again? Air quotes? I don't know how I did that. I just made confetti come out from the air.
I don't know what that was. Oh, this will be interesting then to see what other
if you're listening
pop up.
If you're listening to the podcast, you're like, what the hell's going on? But if you're watching us live on YouTube, I just made it rain confetti somehow. But anyway, back on track. So we missed out on our dream property. So we did our whole permaculture PDC based on this property, 100 acres, and they got offered a cash via I think the day before we got our finance come through. So we kind of made an offer saying our finance will be done next week, and someone pipped us at the post. So we kind of had a whole day of mourning and coming to terms with that because it was a bit of a blow. But we've picked ourselves up, brushed ourselves off. We've got some bookings with agents to have a look. We're going to spend the weekend driving around looking at some properties. And we've kind of tried to get the positive out of it and say, we can do the plan again and we can, revisit all our course notes, and won't that be great? So we're trying to just see it as a positive and regroup because it's changing our plans completely, and everything that's on the market is quite small, like under 2 or 3 acres. So it's going to really change our plan.
Compared
really
to the
change our
100
plans.
or so. Yeah.
And we have to do it in the next couple of months because we have pre-approval. So once that goes, we kind of will miss that opportunity because my work's changing potentially, and there's a few other things in the works. So we need to secure something in the next 2 months.
Oh, I know the pressure's on, but the excitement as well, like that potential. And I mean, I'm a big, and you know this, like we've spoken about this off air before, but the universe gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want.
Yes, and I think it will be divine timing. It's just we couldn't see it at that point in time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Takes the wind out of your sails a little bit. I do feel for you, but I'm really excited for you as well because I know that the right one will come along.
Yes.
But yeah, we've been busy little bees. We've finally finished the deck. So this deck project has been going on pre-COVID, the C word.
The photos look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's been, I'm taking credit here. I've really done maybe 20% of the work. So my husband Anthony, and our sons as well, Mitch and Jay, have really stepped up and helped. But it's been mainly Ant, like if he's had a spare hour, he's been out there, and it's been such a fiddly project because we had to deck over some broken concrete and it was too close to the house. We didn't want to rip it up. So it's been a really, really long protracted project, but it's so been worth it. Like laying that last board and screwing it down and then just going, that's it, we're done. I mean, we haven't stained it, we haven't done any of that, but just the fact that the carpentry side of it is done is just so good.
I can just picture ants like putting that last nail in and then cracking a bit, just sitting there straight away. That's what Oscar would have been doing.
It was pretty much that. He was like, all right, I'm going to pack everything up. And I'm like, no, stuff packing everything up. Right, time for beers. Like, we need to celebrate. So we did. We just stood there and stood at that part of the deck under the tree and, you know, looked out on the view, and it was like, yeah, this is worth it.
So nice.
Yeah. So we've had,
lovely.
Yeah, so we've had that happening. We've got some of our seedlings in, so we've got, you know, a whole heap more in the gardens now. We don't have a full production garden going at the moment because we're going through some major design changes and then major infrastructure changes. So, but we have a couple of active beds. So yeah, we got the seedlings in, which I was really stoked about because they were getting way too long and leggy. And I'm like, you little guys need to go in and you know, have the best possible opportunity to produce some beautiful food for us. And I got another hot compost cracking. So it's been busy. It's been really busy. It's good.
How are you guys going for water out there?
Are
you on town? Are you on town water?
No, we're on tank water.
Right.
And unfortunately at this stage we don't have the capacity that we want to be at. So we are there's plans to get more tanks in. There's plans to fix the guttering and the roofing on the shed because we lose so much water off the property. You know, we haven't put our swale plans in place yet for the paddock as well. So a lot of that sheets off. I mean, we catch a lot of it in the dam. So the dam's great. The dam's, you know, self-supporting at the moment. But yeah, unfortunately, we've actually had to buy water in a couple of times this year already. And I know that we will continue to have to do that over summer.
Yeah. Be interesting to keep updated on that because I think a lot of people are going to be in that position this spring and summer and even going into winter. Like our last winter and the Hunter was very dry.
Oh, incredibly. You know, we had what did we have, sort of 60 odd mil the other day, and that was not a lot. Beautiful. It was it's not a lot at all, but you know, we had that, well, I shouldn't say the other day, it was over a couple of days, but you know, it topped things up. It kept the garden going. Everything looked green and lush for a few days. Like, this is beautiful. And then bang, that heat comes back. Those winds come back. You know, the heat's okay. The heat you can kind of deal with. It's those winds. They just strip moisture out of everything.
Yeah. It's crazy, that little tiny bit of rain, though, how green everything gets. I love it. It's beautiful when it happens.
Oh, it really is. It's like we kind of find, I was talking to a friend about this, we kind of find that we have about 4 weeks a year that we thoroughly enjoy watching everything green. So there's like 2 weeks in autumn and there's 2 weeks in spring where it's the perfect combination of moisture levels and heat and sunlight, and like everything just goes berserk. And apart from that, most of the time the valley's pretty brown. We just go, that's just how it is. And you know, we have some big plans to, you know, re-green our overgrazed, overeaten and overtrampled paddocks. You know, that's on our, I mean, they were bad when we got here, but you know, we didn't know what we were doing when we got here either. So we did a lot more damage that we didn't need to do. So we're now in the process of fixing that. But that's all part of it, right? Like, that's all part of the process. And it's
the lesson.
You know, you can't do everything all at once.
Small and slow.
That's it. Small and slow solutions. Love it.
So today we're going to do a little bit of a chat into how we both got introduced to permaculture or found permaculture, and just unpack what permaculture means to us at this point in our journey, because as our tagline suggests, this is all about our unfurling of our journey, how we're growing and how we're developing. So it's kind of going to be a little stamp in time of how we currently see permaculture. It'd be cool to do this in a year's time and see how much it's changed since then. But yeah, we'll crack on with it.
Absolutely. So I suppose if you'd like to start, Alysse, and share with us a little bit about how you discovered permaculture. Let's start there.
So I've always been really into gardening and being outside. So my grandparents had a farm and we kind of grew up, you know, mum and dad worked, so we grew up a lot of the time with them. I come from a Croatian background. All of my grandparents were born in Croatia. So they have that inherently, you know, village kind of little gardens, and they often grew their own food or caught it and whatnot. So I think that kind of helped along that journey. My dad's a chiropractor, so a very holistic kind of upbringing as a kid. But then as I grew up and met Oscar, my husband, we tried to have kids and we weren't falling pregnant. So that's kind of when the permaculture, not just the gardening side of that journey started. So we were trying for a baby for about a year. And couldn't fall pregnant, so went and got everything checked out, and we ended up having to do IVF to have Addie, our eldest, who's 5. And as part of IVF, like I wasn't really going to do IVF to start with because I didn't like the idea of putting all these extra things in my body and how I felt about that. We looked into adoption, but that wasn't really a good fit for us at that time. So we went ahead with IVF, and I just thought, if we're going to do this, I've got to really prep my body and give my body the best chance and counteract anything that I'm kind of injecting myself with that's synthetic or not natural and those kinds of things. And just the toll it was going to take on my body, you know, the fact that, you know, you got all these extra hormones and surgeries and all these things that I had to deal with. So we cleaned up our whole life and our way of living. So it started with low tox products. So, you know, I stopped using perfumes. We stopped using chemical products around the house and switched to things that were a bit kinder to our bodies. So we clean with like vinegar and bicarb and lemon oil and those kinds of things. And to, you know, get surfactants, we just use Castile soap for all of our cleaning products. And if we need bubbles to help, you know, break down oils and fats and things like that. So yeah, we just kind of cleaned all of that up, started, you know, trying to eat more organically grown vegetables. And then one thing kind of just led to another as we went down that journey. You know, you meet more people, you find more accounts on Instagram and social media, and you kind of grow that circle of influence that you have in your life. And as we did that, we kind of started learning about permaculture and regen, and I think the organic food really kind of took us down that path. We were shopping at farmers markets a lot and talking to people, and I did the intro. I did just a farm tour. Sorry, I did the farm tour with Brett, with one of my friends. We went along and just did it for fun. She was like, "Oh, I know this guy and I'm going to do it. Do you want to do it with me?" And I thought, yeah, that's fine. And I was just like, oh my God, this place is so overwhelming. That was my initial thought of Brett's place, because it was spring and you were like, you know, going through the garden like this, trying to separate the, you know, mulberry bush and the bloody passion fruit vine to find your seed. And it was insane. And I thought, I've got to come back and see this place in a different season, and I've got to come back and take it all in again because there's just so much to see. So I did the intro course, which is a 2-day over a weekend with my mum, Introduction to Permaculture, and just fell in love. And so my mum did the full course and I was totally jealous of her. And then we had the opportunity, my husband and I, to do the course together, and my mum to have the kids every second weekend, because it's a 3-month course. It's a protracted permaculture design course. So yeah, and that's obviously where I met you, and everything's just snowballed from there.
Oh, fantastic. And I just want to acknowledge like that journey of IVF and what you went through to have Addie, like that's huge. Like that's such a big thing and such a brave thing to do, and to really set yourself up in the best way possible by going low tox and being incredibly aware of what you're consuming, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting on your body as well. Like I know that, you know, that you are very minimalistic when it comes to putting anything on your body as well. So we're talking about cosmetics and perfumes and scents and things like that, which, you know, is such a testament to what, you know, what you've been through and your journey as well.
And the other big part of it too, which I didn't mention, we live in a caravan. I think we kind of explored that in our little handover episode that we did from your old podcast.
Episode 1 as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yes, what did we talk about last week? yeah, so part of that journey too was that I was going through a really bad place mentally after we had our second child, Fergus. Oscar was working long hours. We were about to double our mortgage to like expand our house to make it, you know, bigger, pretty, shinier, you know, more functional, but not really. It was just all the things that you kind of want in a house. And yeah, I just had like I had a full-on breakdown. Like I had anxiety, I had depression. I was not coping. I wasn't very happy at all. Oscar was never around. He wasn't seeing the kids grow up. My best friend got cancer. We had 5 guys that we knew that were friends or friends of friends who were the same age as Oscar and I, with kids, the whole family. And 5 of these guys committed suicide within the space of about 8 months. And that was a big wake-up call for us. It was just like, you know what? Nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And we wanted a big life change. So we'd been planning for a little while to buy a caravan and travel Australia. So we just took the plunge and did that. And then in that process, just reassessing our life and saying, you know, why do we want a big house? And we actually want to grow our own veggies. Like, I've been growing veggies for years. Like, can we scale this up? And how good does it feel to be in the garden? And for our mental health, how great is it to be outside all the time? And we just decided that we wanted to change our work to being around that farm and creating produce and maybe flowers, like commercial flower farming and workshops. And I think once we did the course with Brett, that really inspired us. So yeah, part of that journey as well was me having that real low moment and then redesigning our lives around what we want, and permaculture became a huge part of that.
Yeah, and it's really, really the thing that underpins everything now for you, isn't it? It's your decision making. It's how you are in life. It's who you are in life, and it's not about being, you know, this strict permy where it's like, these are the rules and you've got to stick to it. It's that it underpins lens. The decisions.
Yeah, it's the lens in which we see things. That's kind of how I describe it when I talk to somebody. It's our lens and our framework for seeing the world, and your framework might be very different to mine, but it's still part of that permaculture principles and ethics and the things that underpin it. So I think we can get into this later, but I think a lot of people think of permaculture still as gardening and gardening techniques and a toolbox, but it's a lot more than that, which I didn't realize until we did the permaculture course. I got into the course initially thinking we were going to learn how to garden. So yeah, it's a new lens the way we see things, really. So
yeah, I love.
And how about you? That.
Well,
yes, I know, but so many people say that. Yes, it's just a gardening course. I'll go, and we even
garden.
Yeah, you know, I'll go learn how to grow carrots. But no, it's more than that.
It's
but how did you find permaculture and get into this philosophy?
I suppose mine was a little bit more subtle in a way. So, you know, I've always grown my own food, you know, and we've never been on land before this. This is our, you know, we've got 6.5 acres here. And before this, we were on little tiny house blocks, like, you know, under 500 square meters. And so even when I rented many years ago, you know, I'd always grow my own veggies, whether it was in a bucket or a raised bed, or I would just, you know, do a veggie patch out the back. I always had this desire to grow good, healthy, clean food. Back in the day, to me, healthy, clean food was still putting fertilizers on there. I didn't use pesticides and herbicides so much, but I wasn't educated either. I didn't understand what I was doing and why I was doing it. It was more that this product says I need to do this at this time, and this is the result that I would get. And yeah, you know what? I got some really great results, but at the detriment to the nutrients that were actually in my food that I was consuming. And then obviously, you know, myself and my family were then consuming these products. But that was sort of my start of the journey, was growing food. And then I moved into organic growing. I'm going, why am I paying money to put this stuff on here? This doesn't make sense. Nature can do this without, you know, going down and buying a container of chemicals. So why do I have to do that? So I then started to explore organic gardening more, and then it just kind of rolled from there. I don't actually know exactly how I found permaculture, but I just kind of, I don't know, found it one day and researched more. And I was the same. I'm like, well, this is a really cool way of gardening. Like, okay, permaculture, permanent agriculture, that was the original intent. It was more about having, you know, a systematic approach to agriculture that was on a far more permanent scale than this, monocropping annual turn and burn of food. And then, as I went down the rabbit hole, as you do when you find permaculture, there's so many rabbit holes, but I started to realize this is so much more. And even more recently, the social side, the social permaculture, like that's something that I'm still exploring and I'm still getting my head around. So, like it keeps going. But how I, came across the course is that I'd been following Bread at Limestone for a little while on social media, and they'd had the same thing, the garden tour and the farm tour. And I said to Ant, my husband, come on, let's go along and let's go and have a look. Let's get some inspiration. That's what we went along for, was just some inspiration. And I'd looked at doing other permaculture courses and things like that in the past, but had never, nothing had really ever stuck for me. And so we went along, and we were like you, we were just like, holy crap, like this is phenomenal. Like he's got so much going on in such a small space, but it doesn't feel like it's small and cramped. Like you feel like you were on 100 acres and you're standing. Yeah,
he's only on an acre there. So and we can put in the show notes for anybody who wants to have a look at his Instagram or book into a course, a little link for you to have a look, because it is epic.
It's really, really worth having a look. And the photos don't do it justice. Like, it just doesn't matter how good the photo is, it doesn't do it justice.
No.
But so we went along, and at the end, he's talking about his permaculture design course, and I said to my husband, look, I really want to do this, but I don't want to do it alone, because I don't want to have to go along to this course, learn what I'm learning, get really excited, come home and then try and translate that while I'm still trying to understand and learn myself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
convince you.
or convince you, exactly. And so we have to do it this way. And he says, no, we should do it another way. And because, you can always imagine a husband and wife having that conversation is going to go well. Right? And to my surprise, I thought, I'm going to have to do the hard sell on him here. I'm going to have to go like full wife mode and just be like, come on, you have to do this with me. And he went, let's do it. Let's just book it in and let's just get it done. And
so good.
I was just like, this is amazing. So we jumped in, and that's where we met. We sort of hit it off day one. We kind of met, and I know that Ant and Oscar, they became like, they had a little kind of romance. Yeah.
Do you think that like when you started your previous podcast, researching for that or learning for that also kind of took you down that path?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I had discovered permaculture before that, but it was I was still trying to understand what it was, and so the previous podcast that I had, so Self-Sufficiency Made Simple, that was more around really basic information for people, how to grow food, how to be self-sufficient in something in their life. Like, it's not about living off grid and never, living like a hermit and you don't have anything to do with society, you don't have money, this. It was about being a normal human who, has a job or runs a business or, has kids and, has all the usual life pressures. But how can I just do one thing and just do that well and be self-sufficient? It could be growing spring onions. It could be growing, sprouts on your windowsill. It didn't matter. It was about getting people inspired to do that. And so I did start to introduce permaculture into that podcast a bit. So there was an episode around what is permaculture, and then we started to go down. I went straight from what is permaculture to solutions. So, we did an episode on comfrey and, what the benefits are with that. But there was a lot in the middle that I missed, that I just didn't. I was in the process. It's not that I didn't understand. I was in the process of understanding. And by doing the permaculture design course, for me, that brought all that together. There was so many moments that I was like, you saw me, I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, the penny drops. So
yeah, absolutely.
But you get why that's an appropriate solution, or you learn about considerations to take into account rather than just, it being a Band-Aid solution for everything.
Exactly.
There are so many things that you can choose from and so many different ways to choose to do things.
That's right. And context is king.
Oh,
it is. Context is everything. And I mean, I don't know how many people, and whether it's the gardening side of permaculture or the living side. So when we're looking at, and like you said, we'll get into this a little bit more in later episodes, but understanding how that applies to you as a person, around the decisions that you make, around who you're showing up as every single day, who you're being, who you're influencing, and sometimes more importantly, who you're not. Like, who who are the people who are like speaking to a brick wall? Like, don't waste your energy. It's like anything. You can't convince someone of something. You can just share information and knowledge and your experience.
Yeah. I love that, Jo. That's so good.
Yeah, and it's, to me now, permaculture it underpins everything that I do. Am I perfect? Not even close. Do I still buy stuff that I think I didn't consider the packaging, or I didn't consider the shipping, or I didn't consider this and that, or do I sometimes... Or
it was cheaper, cheaper to buy non-organic or whatever it is,
And that's the thing, like, you know what, we're all doing the best that we can. And that's what I love, like this podcast, I really want to share with people that that's okay. Like, do your best, because I think sometimes we can get really overwhelmed. Like, I know someone who's amazing at being waste free. She puts her red bin out once every 6 months. Like, she's a freaking superstar. Like, I'm not there. I am not there yet. And I used to beat myself up with that sort of stuff. And I'd go, I need to do better. I have to do better. I personally am responsible for saving the world. That's on me, and I think a lot of people feel like that too, especially with, this awareness, this big awareness swell of how important Mother Earth is and how much we need to look after her, and climate change is having such a huge impact. And yes, we all need to do much better, but it's not on us as a singular person. Are you an absolute horrible person if you forgot your keep cup and you wanted a coffee? Really? Are you that terrible that's it? You should hang your head in shame for the rest of your life and not call yourself a permaculturalist. No.
I love that you touch on that, because it's not an all or nothing thing.
Yeah, that's right.
It can't be. It's not manageable with everyday life.
No. So most of us can't do that and attain that.
So important to keep that in mind, that just little steps, and and I'm reading the new Milkwood book that she put out. It's all about habits, and it goes through all the habits through the 12 principles. And one of the things she was touching on is if you pick the one habit up and you keep it long enough, it'll become second nature. So then you can pick up another habit, but doing it all is not, it's not going to happen. It's not realistic, happen, and that's, you'll probably half-ass most of it. Then yes,
Kirsten from Milkwood,
Bradley. I should know her name, but I just the Milkwood lady. The mushroom Milkwood lady.
They're the Milkwoods. That's it. That's exactly right. It is picking up on those little habits. It's change one thing and get good. I mean, we know that about our own personal habits. Like, how many times have we all gone on this health quick kick and we go, right, we're going to join
I'm not drinking.
Not drinking. We're not going to eat sugar. I'm not going to have caffeine. I'm cutting out carbs, and I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And it's like, that doesn't even come close to happening. Like, if we're really phenomenal at it, we might sustain it for a week. I can tell you now, 24 hours. 24 hours for me, and I fall on my ass and go, I'm done. So it's about celebrating the wins as well, understanding the changes that you've made. Consider where you were 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 2 months ago even, and go, okay, what have I changed? It could even just be a mindset shift. It might not be that you've taken any specific actions that you can say to the world, but look at me, look how amazing I am. But within yourself that you might have just shifted your perspective on how you see something, and that's now starting to have an effect on the people around you, or your children, your parents. That's a toughie. That's a really tough one. There's so many different ways,
and the mindset ones really can be the most influential one, because your change of mindset and then your actions then influence the people around you. When you want to change a habit that your partner might have, if you look in the mirror first and you look internally and you change maybe your habits, they pick it up just because they're around you, So influencing your family and not having to jam permaculture down their throat. You just do it and it becomes part of your life and their life, and it kind of spreads.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really
But
does.
talking about what permaculture means to us, I might start off with Bill Mollison's definition of permaculture.
Yes, please.
So it was defined as the conscious design and maintenance of agricultural productive systems which have diversity, stability, and resilience of natural ecosystems. It's the harmonious integration of the landscape with people providing their food, energy, shelter, and other material and non-material needs in a sustainable way. In other words, permaculture is a holistic, living in harmony with nature worldview, as well as a technical approach for how to do so. So that was his definition that I got off some website.
It just explains it beautifully, because it's a hard thing when someone says to you, what's permaculture? I don't know about you, but I go
like, kind of like regen ag and maybe like organic farming, but also like how you treat people, and maybe you just kind of verbal diarrhea all these random things out, don't you?
People go, okay, that's cool, that's nice. And or certainly if someone's in that space and they ask you, well, what do you see permaculture is? It's then like the pressure of is my view of it, my
correct.
Definition correct? Yeah. How does that stack up against yours? And again, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, as long as you are considering those ethics of people care, earth care, fair share. They're the ethics, like that. Principles aside, put those totally aside. If you just live life with those three things in mind, that you take action and make decisions and live according to those three ethics, you're done.
Yeah,
you're done. Like that's you're going to meet most of the principles in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
I know that's a really simplistic view, but
but when it boils down to it,
practical.
Yes, that's 100%. And those things you just mentioned, none of them have the word garden or plant or anything in them. So you can see how that's such a small part potentially of the big picture. So when I was jotting down what it meant to me, I wrote down it's a way of living that integrates my family's needs for food, shelter, thermal comfort, and financially living with the land and the natural environment. It means striving for harmony between the land and our needs. It also more recently means connecting to community to support this also. So that's kind of a new thing for me. We haven't really been doing that so much in our little nomadic lifestyle. I mean, you can do it online and things like that. But for me, I think those real connections as well are important to establish. So that's something that we're really trying to do now knowing where we're roughly going to be location-wise. We really want to get into bartering and trading and those kinds of things. And the financial side for us is huge. Like, we really want to be able to live within our means and not constantly have to feel like we're reaching for more money, especially at the expense of our emotional well-being or the land. We don't want it to be at the expense of the land around us. So
exactly.
Yeah. What about you?
So for me, I sort of wrote it out as a little bit of a statement. So I'll read that out. So for me, permaculture is a holistically designed system of living that allows us to support the land while producing outputs that support us and our community. And that's through using closed loop systems, integrations, and methods that mimic what nature does. It's really a whole of life approach. So it's a way of thinking, acting, and being, which I've touched on before, but it's doing so which minimizes our negative impact on the earth and maximizes our positive impact. So really, in practice, it's how we interact with our environment, what choices we make every day, the benefit of the planet and its inhabitants. And for us too, it's really important about leaving a legacy. It's leaving a legacy. Not just a legacy as in the context of our family. It's leaving a legacy of leaving the land better than what we found it, because the land when we got it was nowhere near what it was, in its natural state. It's been
Yes.
divided, it's been fenced, it's been farmed, it's had trees ripped out of it, it's got degradation, it has erosion, it has next to no life in it. So we want to give back to the land as much as humanly possible while still supporting us and supporting our community. And I love that you touched on the social stuff. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but I've been the same. And I think it's really funny that you and I are now doing a podcast together, considering that we were, I wouldn't say antisocial. But it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't a focus for us. And we were the same. We did a lot of stuff in isolation, and I was almost a little bit anti engagement, because it was like, when the more people you engage with, the more expectation there is on you to do and be a particular thing. And well, I had this in my mind, like this was my own little, mind bend. And then I realized after a while that that's not the case. This is my own story, my own hang-ups, and I had to work through those. So now, we're selling our eggs down to Maitland Street Collective, our local cafe. Heather down there. So cool. So that's what I was doing before I jumped on. Today I was in there cleaning eggs. I tried not to wash them because I like to keep the bloom on them, but unfortunately they get a bit mucky, and I'm not going to sell mucky eggs. We can't. Not allowed to. So we're doing that. We're actually going to be building some wicking beds down there for them as well. So cool. Farmlet, which is our property, is going to be sponsoring the wicking beds. So we'll get a little plaque on there. So what we'll do is, Ant and I'll probably build one. We'll have one set up, and then we might do a little workshop, just a free community engagement workshop where people can come down and help us build an IBC wicking bed, and then we can have some nice cut and come again greens in there, some edible flowers. So, Heather and Josie and the girls at Maitland, I should say the ladies, the beautiful ladies at Maitland Street Collective can, walk outside and go snip, 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 and all that beautiful food can then be served to the local customers here. So, that's been a big thing for me. And also then just having conversations with people about just all sorts of random things. Like if I get an opportunity to speak to someone, whether it's about permaculture, whether it's about something local, like it doesn't always have to be permaculture as such.
Yes.
It's any sort of positive conversation. If I can have that interaction now, I absolutely will. Whereas years ago, probably not even years, not that long ago, I might have gone, I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the bandwidth. Now I'm finding it's the opposite. I'm needing that.
It lights you up.
It lights me up, absolutely. And it's something that I'm very conscious and aware of. Is it lighting that other person up as well? If this is not a two-way interaction that's quite balanced, then it's not an interaction that either of us want to have, and that's okay. So it's been a really interesting process. So I'm still finding my social permaculture and what that means.
For me, it was more imposter syndrome. Like, I don't have enough knowledge, or I don't have the authority to talk about this. And it wasn't until we did our course, and not so much the social side, because I feel like the other people like Beck and Anna and some of those people that were in our class had those skills way beyond me. But just the confidence when we were talking about certain gardening things, or my knowledge, or things that came really secondhand nature to me because of the way I was brought up. People are like, how do you know all this? So how did you find that info? And when did you read that? And I was like, you know what? Like, I actually
Doesn't everyone know this?
I actually do have this knowledge, and I need to kind of flex that a little bit and not feel boastful about it. It's not that side of it, but I do have worth, and I can bring something to the conversation, especially around building techniques and things like that, because my parents flipped houses when I was little. So I had, when we're doing that aspect of thermal comfort and being able to build houses in a particular way to enhance nature and what's around us, I was like, I know all this, like this is all really second nature to me. So I think having more conversations with people kind of made me realize my value and what I could kind of bring to the table, because my background is not anything in this. So I think that was what was stopping me socially. I just didn't think that I had enough knowledge to share, and that I was worthy to kind of talk to other people about those things. And even still, like, I met up with a lady here the other day and we were talking about something, and I was rabbling on, and then she kind of just looked at me blankly, and I just had this like, oh my God, I'm just talking shit, and I'm not even, like, she's not even agreeing with me, and and then she was like, yeah, and then she kind of started talking, and I was like, had this relief moment, like, okay, no, you're not just, talking out of, just I was so nervous talking to her, and I felt like she was like, what are you going on about, as I was talking, and then finally she started putting her perspective and agreeing with things and disagreeing with things, and I kind of went, oh, okay, no, it's okay, Alysse, like you're not just going crazy talking to these people about things that aren't true, or you don't have an authority to talk about them. So yeah, it's definitely a process being brave enough.
I love that you touched on that imposter syndrome, because it's real. It is so real. And I think, especially, not that I want to say that we don't all have it to a degree, but I think especially for women, and coming from a bit of a personal development background, I was a bit of a personal development junkie for a while, and I still am to a degree. I just don't necessarily buy into a lot of other stuff, but that's a conversation for later. But yeah, it's a very real thing. It's that imposter syndrome, our self-talk, and it can stop us from doing some really amazing things, because sometimes it's just too scary to challenge something, or to have those conversations. Like, you get into that moment of, am I really talking out of my ass, or am I actually know what I'm talking about, and am I backing myself on this? And it's that self-talk and the doubt, and that can stop us from having those really important and beautiful conversations. And I mean, by you having that conversation and making that connection with that person, I guarantee she's walked away from that interaction going, oh wow, like, Alysse is really giving me something to think about here. And it could just be one thing.
I think it's different when we talk, because, if you said, no, I don't agree, I wouldn't be offended with that, or we could have that conversation because we know each other enough. But when I've met someone new, especially, which is, trying to build that social connection, and you have an opinion on something, especially when you're talking about ethics, permaculture can get quite political and quite ethical, and there's, some pretty big topics that you delve into that are normally poo-poo in general society. Don't talk about money, politics, and religion, but that's part of what permaculture is, because it's a way of life. So when you have those conversations, they can be quite scary, because not everybody agrees. You don't know what their background is. I don't want to wait 6 months to have these conversations with these people. I want to know if they're my tribe or not, and kind of get into the nitty-gritty. But that's scary. Like, that's really scary to put yourself out there and be like, well, this is what I believe, and this is how I see the world, and not everyone's going to agree with that, even though they're part of the permaculture tribe.
Yeah, exactly. And especially that's enhanced even more so online. Like, it's it's one thing to have that in person. I mean, we all have had moments online where we've been attacked for something that we've said, or we've been mistaken, someone's taken it the wrong way, or it can be really, really challenging. And I know even with this podcast, I know there's going to be people listening out there that are going to go, oh, these two broads just have no clue what they're talking about.
And that's okay.
And I'm cool for that, yeah. Because we want to connect with the people that are going, cool, there's an episode that is out again this week, and we want to listen. And they can provide value to the conversation that we're having. We want people to reach out. We want people to engage with us. And you know what? We want people to challenge. We want you guys to challenge us on stuff too. Like, if we talk about something and they go, you're listening to this and you go, look, we think you're wrong on this, or we don't think you've considered this perspective. We say in our intro, we are not the experts, and we will never, ever be, we could be doing this podcast in 40 years' time and we would still never claim to be an expert.
Yes.
It is a long-term learning, and it's a long-term implementation.
Yes. And I think we touched on this in our intro too, that there are other podcasts out there that are going to be doing maybe more higher level sciencey behind permaculture, or more woo-woo thinking, that we're not on that level, or we're not on that vibration at the moment, because we're at the beginning of our journey, and we want people who are on that stage of their journey to have a platform to experience this with us and to find something that they resonate with, because if they go listening to one of these real highbrow conversations, it might just be too much and they're not at that point yet where they're ready to absorb that information. So I think it's just a different level that we're kind of bringing, a different conversation. It's a bit more casual.
We're very casual, aren't
our
we?
learnings. Yeah, we swear. Like, hello. We're the Bogan Permaculture Group.
That's maybe what we should have called this, Bogan Permaculture.
Oh, the Bogans. Oh, God. But the other really big part, which I didn't talk about with my definition of permaculture, is that it has become a guidebook for slowing down and intentional living, because part of being in the caravan and changing our life was that key moment. And I think because observation and consideration is such a big part of the permaculture principles, relying on those two principles heavily at this stage in my journey, you know, in this season of my permaculture life, is that I want to really lean on those, because I don't want to go back into typical life when we go back into a house again and we're not traveling and everything speeds up and everything gets fast paced and we have all these stresses again. So for me, permaculture is about living intentionally and slow and, you know, having slow considerations and protracted thinking and not just taking snap decisions, because I'm an all or nothing person and I'll go, yeah, we're doing this. And if it fails, cool, we'll change it. But I think permaculture is teaching me to really be in the moment and slow down, and kind of leaning on that a lot at this season of my life. So that's the other big thing that permaculture is to me right now.
Yeah, that's really good. And you're absolutely spot on that, you know, those different stages of life, different reasons and different seasons and stages of life, you're going to resonate with maybe different principles, or maybe you just apply them in a different way.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and it's a really interesting, I know that we've spoken about this off air too, like how even in our very short journeys, how we've changed our perspective on certain things and have become open to certain things and you know, and possibly even, you know, discounted some things that you know, we thought maybe have been good in the past, and now we look at it and go, no, that's really not going to be serving us moving forward.
Much. Yeah. And I mean, I have little kids, you don't have little kids, so you know what I'm deep diving to isn't going to be the same as what you're deep diving to, and I think that's lovely, because that's how we learn from each other and the people around us, by doing those things and interacting, so that we can have these different perspectives and
that's it.
And it's very important.
Yeah, we definitely learn from each other, and it gives us a different perspective and an appreciation too, because I think sometimes when you do get stuck in life, you know, like you get exactly what you're being very intentional about not being, you know, which is rushed and hurried and in a rut, we lose perspective. We lose perspective on what we're trying to achieve as an individual, and then what the family's trying to achieve. I mean, how many people out there that are listening, or that you know, that they get up, they go to a job, they come home, they crack their beer or have their wine, they have their meal, and they go to bed, and they just put this on repeat, and they work their asses off just to be able to pay their bills. They're not doing this for a greater good for themselves. They're just doing this to continuing to survive. It is the you know, proverbial rat wheel. And I think that being able to be far more intentional, it does allow you to take that step back and say, what are we doing here? What are we doing this for? And like you touched on earlier, you know, life is short. We only get one shot at this. And how do you want it to be? Like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind to your family, to your friends, to your community, to the land that you're on and around you and the world? Like, what is it that you want to leave? Or do you just want to be on the rat wheel? And if you do, that's okay. Like, that's no judgment too. Some people function in that really, really well, and that's cool.
And some people don't have the capacity for more right now in that point in time. You know, the journey that you or me or someone else might have taken just to get to this point might be too much. You know, you don't know somebody's context. And I think when we were doing our course, Brett was talking about, I don't go into a conversation. He was saying, I don't go into a conversation saying, oh, permaculture this and regen ag that. If someone's not using the terminology of permaculture, but they're living it, then that's good enough. Like, why do we have to then make it a label?
Exactly. We don't need a label.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really nice point that you made, and the legacy and what you were talking about, maybe the end on. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've had a really good conversation about this. I mean, we could talk about this for bloody hours. Like, I think we'd be our you guys out there, our poor listeners, you'd just be like, okay, we're over it now.
Enough now, guys.
Enough. But look, I think that that is a good point to end on. Is what is your intention? How do you want to live? How are you showing up every day for you, not for anyone else, for you?
And your why.
And your why.
Your why for what you're doing.
What are you
it's
doing?
Really important to think and take stock of.
And remember that there is no wrong answer.
Yes.
There's no wrong, and you don't have to be better than the next person or not better than the next person. You don't even have to compare yourself to the next person. This is about you as an individual and
your journey.
What's going to work for you right now at this stage, and that may not be the same next week, and that is okay.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to the Practical Permaculture Podcast. We hope this episode gave you some inspiration and confidence and has helped you in your permy journey. For the show notes, head down to all the things we mentioned today. And if you like this podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate and share. And if you didn't, then get back to your garden.
Have an amazing week.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye-bye.